Well, Jay, Richard Leakey recently wrote gave an interesting interview about his thoughts on the future of both public belief and evolution.
Yeah, before I get into that, I'll give you a quickie on who Richard is in case you don't know. Richard Leakey is a Kenyan paleontologist who is currently a professor at the Stony Brook University on Long Beach in the United States. And he's known for discovering a 1.6 million year old skeleton in 1984 known as Turkanaboy. And this happens to be the first known early human with long legs, short arms, and a tall stature.
He's also, you should say, the son of Louis and Mary Leakey. Together, the Leakey family, probably discovered more human fossils than anyone else.
Yes, that is what they claim. I don't know. I haven't been able to find anything to validate that, but I did read that on several occasions. He stated recently that he believes that in the next 15 to 30 years, the evidence for evolution is going to be so blatantly obvious at that point that even the religious will accept it. And here's a couple of quotes. I mean, his heart's in the right place, but I think he's on obvious and very shaky ground here. But I'll let you decide on your own. He said, if you get to the stage where you can persuade people on the evidence, well, that all by itself is a magnificently huge statement. But he continues, so if you can persuade people on the evidence that it's solid and that we are all African, that color is superficial, that stages of development of cultures are all interactive, then I think we have a chance of a world that will respond better to global challenges. And it's like, yeah, well, of course, but the fight here, as you guys know, is the education part of that. You know, of course, it's obvious. He's saying, you know, if we can convince people of all these things, then we can have all these great things that come after that. But the skeptical community has been attempting to persuade the media and global governments and the general population that we need to follow the evidence, which is what he's saying. If we just follow the evidence, you know, we can get to this next level. And the fact is, we have enough evidence right now to fully accept evolution.
Yeah, if the evidence that's available now isn't enough, I don't think, no matter how much more we gather, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, and he betrays exactly how naive he is, I think, in that he's even referencing the idea that soon we'll be able to logic people out of severe racial and cultural differences, which is just absurdly naive. Like, oh, we're all African, everybody. Oh, okay, we'll just stop the, gross systemic discrimination that has existed in our culture for thousands of years. What, he's such an intelligent person, obviously. Like, it makes me wonder how removed from reality he is that he thinks these things. Yeah, and there's the old saying that you can't reason someone out of a position that they reasoned themselves, or that they didn't reason themselves into. I think that holds true, unfortunately. You can't just say, oh yeah, now the evidence is incontrovertible,
Yeah. The power of motivated reasoning should not be underestimated. And I think that's the bit that Richard Leakey is missing.
That's why, Steve, it's not to gain more data, as he described. In my opinion, it's to educate the next generation to understand real science from everything else.
That's a good point, and that's mirrored in the experience of scientists who debate creationists. That there are, like we talked about the fact that Duane Gish made a career out of going around the country debating evolutionary scientists and kicking their butts. And the reason for that is that the evolutionary scientists, much like Richard Leakey in this interview, think that being right and being armed with a lot of factual information about what makes how we know that evolution is a fact, that was enough, that they were going to win because they were right and they had the facts. And then they got their clocks cleaned because what they didn't understand is skepticism. They didn't understand how people get themselves into those belief systems in the first place, the logical fallacies and other mental distortions and pseudoscientific arguments that people use in order to distort the science. He didn't understand the skeptical angle to creationism. So turning that around, I think you're right. If we are going to achieve the goal that Richard Leakey thinks, it's not going to be just by gathering more facts that prove to an even deeper degree that evolution is true. It's going to be creating a more skeptical and scientifically literate culture. That, of course, no one knows what the future holds in that regard, but I think that's exactly what we're working towards.
Bye.